purpose of this study was to investigate the behavioral and cognitive flexibility of bumblebees, as well as how social learning impacts the development of new behaviors in bees. Cognitive flexibility is the ability of an organism to make the mental connections that allow or motivate it to perform new behaviors. It's basically the capacity of an organism to think outside the box. Behavioral flexibility is the ability of an organism to adapt new behaviors in response to changes in the environment. Social learning is a type of learning that involves observing, imitating, or modeling another individual's behavior. Researchers wanted to investigate these attributes in bees in order to assess how species that depend on the ability to learn may develop new behaviors if the environment supports these changes. They also aimed to use them as a measure of the intelligence of bees. The researchers tested these traits in the following way. This experiment tested 3 sets of bees under different sets of conditions. Each set of bees first went through a pre-training phase, where they were placed by themselves in an enclosed space and conditioned to expect a 30% solution of sucrose in the middle of a small blue circular platform. After this pre-training phase, the 3 sets of bees were exposed to 3 different experimental conditions, which used different methods to train them to perform the same task. The first group was trained to do this task by being exposed to a fake model bee pushing the ball into the center of the platform, at which point the experimenter released the sucrose. The second group was trained on this task by watching the ball move by itself into the center, releasing the reward. This was accomplished using magnets under the platform to move the ball. The last group was trained by just seeing the ball in the center of the platform, with the reward already present. After 10 trials, the bees that were most successful moved on to the next phase of the experiment. The third phase of the experiment involved the same experimental condition or method of training for each bee, but instead of 1 yellow ball on the platform, 3 yellow balls were placed on the platform. The demonstrator moved the ball farthest from the center into the center of the platform. After witnessing this, the bees were again tested to perform the task on their own. The bees that were the most successful over the 20 trials of this phase were then tested using a generalization test, which was the 4th and final phase of the experiment. In this phase, the platform still contained 3 balls, but the closest ball to the center was black instead of yellow. Those who observed the demonstration from the model bee had about a 99% success rate and completed the task in an average of 47 seconds, and those who observed the ghost demonstration or had no demonstration at all. These 2 groups of bees together had an average success rate and completion time of 34% in 96 seconds. And on the generalization test, the bees that completed the task tended to choose the ball that was closest to the center, which was the black ball. The bees that learned by social learning or modeling were also better at the generalization task than the other 2 groups, with an 80% success rate for the social bees and a 50% success rate for the other bees. These 2 figures show these results in graphical form. Notice on the average success rate graph on the left that Group A has a higher success rate than Groups B and C combined. Also, on the average completion time graph on the right, notice that Group A took less time on average than Groups B and C to complete the task. The social learning group was the most successful across all trials and performed the task more quickly than the bees who learned by ghost demonstration and with no demonstration. This suggests that social learning or modeling was the most effective method for bees to learn this complex task. The bees that learned via ghost demonstration were also more successful than the bees with no demonstration in terms of time and success rate, suggesting that mirroring an action not performed by another bee was also an effective method of learning the task. During the trials involving 3 balls, the bees from all groups were most likely to choose the closest ball to the center rather than the farthest ball, which was the one chosen by the demonstrator, which suggests that bees were not simply copying the actions of the demonstrator. The bees that were the best at the generalization test were the ones that had learned it socially. This experiment connects with the modules we have studied so far in the following ways. Evolution. Most likely, bumblebees did not immediately emerge as a species with strong learning capabilities and behavioral flexibility. Such characteristics were probably acquired through periods of evolution as a species due to threats from other organisms and ecological pressures, such as learning to fend from a group of humans attacking a hive. Ecology. Bumblebees thrive in regions with temperate climates and find it difficult to survive in more extreme biomes like tundras and deserts. Bumblebees have advanced learning abilities that allow it to adapt to ecological pressures, molecules, and metabolism. The reward for successfully completing the task was the solution of sucrose. The sucrose solution is a pleasant motivator for completing the task, since the bumblebees can readily break it down into glucose for use in cellular respiration, which will use that glucose to create energy for the bumblebee's cells. So what's the big picture? Well, most of the bees involved in this experiment were able to learn and quickly complete the task, showing that bees have a high capacity for complex learning and problem solving. Bees from all test groups were able to modify what they had learned in the demonstration to perform the task more efficiently by choosing the closest ball to the center, even if it was a different color, which demonstrated cognitive flexibility and the ability for bees to generalize tasks. Also, bees were able to learn the task through a variety of teaching methods, which supports a high capacity for behavioral flexibility and the ability to learn new behaviors in a variety of ways. Though bees from all three groups were successful, the bees that took part in social learning were the best at completing the task, which supports the idea that bees often rely on one another to learn new behaviors. This experiment demonstrated that bees have a huge capacity for cognitive and behavioral flexibility. Perhaps in the future, the advanced learning abilities of bees might be put to use in order to aid modern society.